Lurching wildly from one topic to another here. This segment is one that I have greatly been looking forward to. This gentleman's publishing house very kindly sent out his book previously here. I'll hold it to the camera and show it for him. And it's billed as an autobiography of a life in comedy. Pat Cooper, how dare you say, how dare me. It was a very interesting, very entertaining read, very enlightening about his life. And this just happens to be a gentleman also, I learned today, who is friends with a couple of people who are friends of the show who we've had on a couple times previously. Our good buddy Joe Diaguardi, who, if the people of New York had, quite frankly, more brains, he'd be in the U.S. Senate this year. And also our friend Dominic Chianese, who we just had on the show, who we made friends with a couple of short weeks back. So true pleasure to speak to somebody who we have some friends in common with here, and who is an excellent comic. He probably goes back further in his line of work, I was thinking about this today, than probably anybody we've ever had on the show. Maybe Bob Barker with game shows, maybe, but I think this guy's been doing comedy even longer than Mr. Barker was doing the game shows here. He's had incredible longevity in a business that chews people up and spits them out, and he's still going strong today. I speak, of course, of the one and only Pat Cooper. Pat, welcome to the FDH Lounge, sir. How are you this evening?
Thank you, baby. Happy everything. Are you okay?
Yeah, everything's great on our end. How you doing, sir?
I'm alive, and, I'm 82 years old pretty soon, and I'm still here, and I got a lot of people nervous.
Well, I tell you what, I want to get to something I read, and I only noticed this today when I was rereading through your autobiography, through your memoirs, actually of where your in-laws are from. We, of course, we're based, the Sports Talk Network, out of Cleveland. I understand your in-laws are up in Ashtabula, about 75 minutes east of here. Basically, 60 minutes of civilization, and then another 15 minutes till you get to Ashtabula.
Well, the odds of marrying someone in Ashtabula from Brooklyn is about 1,000,000 to 1. But I got very lucky because I wound up with a lovely lady for 44 years. I lost her 7 years ago, and those are the days and the years that you remember. So I was fortunate, and again, unfortunately, to lose her, that really brought me up to kill me.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. When you've had a long, great marriage like that. As I start to get to asking you about your career and coming up through the business and some of the formative years, I'm just curious. I'm always curious to find out, how small of a world it is sometimes. Dominic Chianese, I know, played a lot of nightclubs. He was in a lot of bands and playing some Italian music through the years. Was he ever, for example, in a band that opened for you when you were doing your comedy act over the years? Did that ever happen?
Did I who? I didn't hear that.
Dominic Chianese, was he ever in a band that opened for you any of the times you were doing stand-up?
The actor and the singer?
Yes, sir.
Oh, he's wonderful. He's absolutely wonderful. And he's just a hell of an actor and a hell of a singer. And he sings the old songs that I was raised listening to on the radio many, many years ago. And, you just had a nice nerve because I'm very fond of him.
I was intrigued to find out that you knew him and were friends with him. Coincidentally, when he was on a couple weeks ago, he called us from the Friars Club, and it's a real coincidence here because the Friars Club, you're going to be known forever for that great Seinfeld episode, which I learned in the book you actually ad-libbed. That was tremendous.
I got that accidentally. I still don't know how I got it, but I got lucky. They decided that I was the guy to be for that spot. And when they first called me, I hung up the phone. I thought somebody was joking with me. But the second phone call, they said, well, they told us you were nuts, but we're going to offer you the job again. And they did. And I flew out the next day, and I went back home the next night, and it was just 1,000,000 to 1 shot. I never even dreamed I'd wind up on that show. And it's one of my favorite shows, not because I did it. It was just wonderful. And, I thought, I guess I hit it. That's about it. Then I wound up doing a De Niro movie, two of his movies. And I said, I was ready to retire, but it just opened up the floodgates again, and it was nice. That's when I decided I got to write a book, but not like everybody else, just a bio saying, I did this, I did that. It gets boring. I wanted to write a book about how you lose things to get where you want to go, and and I put a great flow in this thing because it's all honest. It's everything I can remember and all the sad things. And, coming from an Italian family, you're not supposed to be funny. If you sang off key, you were another Caruso. But if you were funny, you were a buffoon. and I had to break all those obstacles as I was a kid. And going through, the readers that read this book will understand that things don't come easy. And I'd like kids to read this. And I followed my dreams, but it cost me a family. And I put that in there, and I gave it a great flow. And I tell stories about stars that no one has the nerve to talk about, or no one has the nerve to say. And I think I've done it all. I think I work with every major act in the business. And as I said, I'm 82. The final thing is my book, and I'm trying to get that to the public, not for the money, because I didn't get it in advance. I didn't look for it. I did it because I wanted it. People out there to understand nothing comes easy. And in an Italian family, you're in a box. You're Italian Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you're not allowed to get out of the box because you're dealing with two people born in Italy who are nice people, but it's working Monday to Friday, get paid Friday night, go shopping Saturday, and eat macaroni Sunday.
Well, Pat, I mean, everything you're saying shines through in the book. I can certainly testify to that as somebody who really enjoyed it. And when you talk about the fearlessness of the stories in the book here, the only name I need to mention to back up what you just said is Frank Sinatra, particularly when you talk about the folks who served as Frank Sinatra's quote-unquote security. That shows that you'll talk about anything about anybody.
Well, I was raised as no such thing as you got to make your own security. I will not allow anyone to take my dignity. And by standing up for my dignity, people say, well, you lost stardom. I said, I didn't expect to get this far. What are you talking about stardom? I was just looking to make a living in what I like to do. But when you work with a Sinatra, you're supposed to be his comic. And I didn't want to be nobody's comic because I knew once you get trapped, you're dead. And a friend of mine called Pat Emery was his comic for 14 years. He could not advance his career because he was living like Frank Sinatra. They got tangled up in that great stardom stuff. I never did. And I worked with all of them. But you know what happens? The minute they see they can't control you, you're not going to be with them anymore. And Sinatra wound up to be my friend because I'll tell you what's in the book. One day they asked me to take something out of my act, and I says to Frank Sinatra, I don't tell you what songs to sing. Don't tell me how to be funny. And I didn't mean it to be a wise guy. I tried to explain to him, you don't take a butcher's knife away. How is he going to cut the meat? So what are you trying to do to me? I get maybe one or two laughs they're waiting for you, and you want to take away one of my big laughs. And I never worked with him after that. But we became friends, and I knew why. Because he couldn't control you. And he's got to control him. When he says jump, you jump. And I said, my father told me to jump, and I wouldn't jump. My mother told me to jump, I wouldn't jump. I had a way to my dignity. I was ashamed to take my dignity and give it to you. I wouldn't do that for nobody.
Well, that's got to be one of the most important lessons that you can impart in a book like this, is not to let anybody take away your dignity and your self-respect. And you indicated, I understand that happened on a couple of different occasions with a couple of different folks that you were opening up for. What happened with Sinatra, I understand, did happen some other times here of somebody trying to mold you or shape you.
I worked with Paul Anka. 28 days, 56 shows. He never said hello to me. He never said that I was in the show. He never mentioned me. He passed me by, never said good evening. So on the 56th show, his last show, he was doing his last song. I walked on the stage, and I says, Paul, I don't want to upset your day, your evening. My name is Pat Cooper. I just finished 56 shows, and I'm alive, and I'm in front of you. And you got some damn nerve not to recognize me, at least as a human being. He didn't know what to say. He stood at me. He didn't know. He said, you're not going to work with me no more. I said, fine. 6 months later, I worked with him in Boston. And then over there, he tried to conquer me and try to make me do things I refused to do. I said, you're not paying me, number one. And number two, I'm not going to mop up after you. You're out of your mind. Are you nuts? Well, who are you? Are you God? I mean, do I have to do it? And people say, well, you burn bridges. I says, yes, but I paid the toll.
Well, again, these are things I'm sure a lot of these stars weren't used to being dealt with in this way. But that's why a lot of times I think people get out of touch is when people don't call them on this kind of stuff. So it seems like it's very healthy to be one of the individuals who will call them on it. So the gentleman who wrote the foreword for your book, I don't believe you've had nearly the crosswise dealings with here, Jerry Lewis. That must have really been something to get him to contribute.
Jerry came to my home many times. Jerry thought when he used to listen to me on Mike Douglas and Merv Griffin, and when he knew he moved to Vegas, and we became friendly. He came to my home, and when I asked him to write the foreword, he says, "How fast do you want it?" And I said, "I love you, buddy." And he wrote me about 20 minutes after I spoke to him. He emailed me, and that was it. And I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and the sad thing, he's not going to do the telethon anymore. It's only going to be 6 hours. But I want people out there to know, not because he's my friend, this guy is a genius. But this guy's, forget about being a clown. This man is an innovator. This man's done things for show business other guys will never do. I mean, give me a break. Somebody's, well, he's a clown. How dare you say that? Man's a giant. He's a giant. And people say, well, what? It's we like Dean Martin better. I said, well, Dean was another kind of giant. Dean had his own way. All the Italian men that I asked, would you rather be Sinatra, Dean Martin? They all said Dean Martin. Dean had a great suave, but Sinatra, I think, was a better singer. But, Dean had more comedic way about him. And Dean was, I think, more of a fun guy. But privately, Dean was the toughest of the two. Sinatra you could become friends with. Dean, it was difficult.
And it's I'm glad you mentioned the telethon, because I meant to ask you about that, Pat. We'd had a report on the show about 6 months ago. A friend of ours who covers TV in New York, Simon Applebaum, he was complaining on the show about the way the telethon had been treated in the last couple of years, and he thought it was being set up to fail vis-a-vis not getting a chance to go on later in the day, reach the totals of the day before. Is this anything you've observed in the last couple of years as a friend of Jerry's?
Well, I was on last year. I was invited. Jerry called me and asked me to do it. I flew from New York. I went out there. I never got on because they were supposed to put me on 11 o'clock New York time, and here it was 4 o'clock New York time. I'm still in the studio waiting to go on. I finally told the producer, you have a lot of nerve dragging me all these miles to sit here and wait to go on, and you put unknowns. I don't care if you'd ever put me on, but you put unknowns on at 11:20 in New York time. That's an insult. I said, so, do me a favor. I'm going to tell you now, goodbye. And I went home. So I traveled 6,000 miles round trip to do nothing. And Jerry understood because Jerry had no control anymore. Whoever is running that thing, Jerry is just now a figurehead. It will be taped next year, and they'll just say, my kids, and then they'll tell them to go to sleep. They lost their respect for this guy, and it's a sad scenario.
What a screwed up scenario that is. I had a feeling you could really shed some light on that, and you did. That's a depressing picture that you're painting, but it's good for people to know, exactly what's going on with that thing here.
Excuse me, Steve. The people that are doing it now don't have the heartfeltness that Jerry has.
Yeah.
Whether you like Jerry comedically or not, you read him as an actor or not, this guy's one of the biggest movie clowns in the world. But here's a guy that went from hospital to hospital, accused of getting paid for this. He never got a dime. How dare they even accuse this? As all jealous people. He wanted to help these kids, and he went out of his way, and he still goes out of his way. But now they took that pleasure away from him. Now you got political people involved, and they'll knock it out in 2 years. I guarantee there'll be no more MSD.
Yeah.
From MDS.
It seems like the end is in sight, the way that, especially the way they shrank it to this year, and with his decreased involvement in it. There's another very prominent name that figures in the book, particularly towards the back end of your book as you're working through it chronologically, and somebody who, along with the Seinfeld appearance in the late 90s to younger generations, you are known largely for your appearances with Howard Stern. That did a lot to really broaden your appeal and get you known really across just about every generation of of comedy subsequently. Now, the book starts to hint towards the end at something that has become a full-fledged conflagration, it seems like, since then, of the deterioration in relations between you and Howard Stern.
Well, I got to tell you, you can't tell Howard Stern the truth. When I went on his show, every major star that I worked with said, "What are you doing on that jerk show?" I said, "He's out there. I've got to do everything. I'm in show business. I don't have to like everything he says, but it's good for me and him." And it happened. It was going along smooth. Then he's overplaying the recordings that I made on his show of my family. And I'm starting to say to myself, it's 20 years. When are you going to cut it out already? See, then all of a sudden he went uptown. He went on Sirius Radio. He's telling the people that loved and adored him they got to pay $12 to hear the same junk that he's been doing for the last 30 years. Now he moved to the Hamptons in Long Island. Now he married a lovely lady. Now he's trying to get into the Hollywood people because he had a terrible fight with Chevy Chase. And all of a sudden he made up with Chevy and he invites Chevy to his wedding. And I'm saying, you're a hypocrite. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Why don't you turn around and go back to the people that supported you? You're a multimillionaire. Now he plays chess, he smokes a pipe, and he looks at his dog. So when I tell him that he can't handle it, tell everybody, I don't want to talk about him no more. I said, he don't want to hear the truth. I'm going to be the voice of the people who can't tell him. I said, he just sent his wife to go with to the head of Paramount Theater's wedding, Brad Gray. He doesn't know Brad Gray, and won't have it a fact, but he sends his wife, who's a beautiful, young, lovely lady, and she's like the emissary to break the door down so Howard Stern can get in with the hoi polloi. And I'm going to tell you something. He refused to be roasted. He never went to a roast. When we roasted Tarantino, he was there. When we roasted Matt Lauer, he was there. And he tried to get on the dais without being invited, and they threw him the hell off. I said, where the hell were you when you were supposed to go and be roasted like the people who love you? He don't give none to nobody. He just found God. I don't know if you read that in the paper. I said, how come you found God? I never knew he was lost.
I actually hadn't heard that part
he
there.
He told his children how bad he was. Why are you telling your children anything? If they don't know who you are by now, you're a con artist and you don't want to hear that. So I don't talk, we don't talk, and who cares? I got to listen to me. My hobby is I'm rehearsing dying. That's my hobby.
Okay. Well, Pat, and you've sort of anticipated my next question. I have to put this out there based on some things that I'm reading. There is, and I have a feeling you're going to do a very good job of knocking down this conspiracy theory. But there is a conspiracy theory out there that essentially you and Howard still being friends, this is a feud to sell books, etc. What better way to sell books? Now, you just gave a very convincing diatribe right there on Howard Stern and the reasons not to like him, but I just want to put that out there for you, and if there's anything else
he said my book stinks. I sent him a book to say, read and get educated. He told the public my book stinks, and then he told the public that he saw me at the roast. I was terrible. I not only was sensational, I got a standing ovation for what I said about Tarantino and about Uma Thurman, but he wasn't man enough to say, hey, I report the truth. The man was wonderful. The man was a big hit, because he can't handle anyone to stand up to him, because he doesn't have a dignity, and all the years he got away with a lot of problems. I said, then why don't you play the recordings of how you abused your wife? She lost her baby and made a fool of that poor woman. Nobody ever said that to him. They were scared to tell him. I said, what, do you walk on water? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But you're not allowed to say that. He's now in the Hamptons. I say, you're going to die Coney Island. Trust me. That's who you are. You're Coney Island. You're going to die Coney Island. Don't be something you're not. You're a pain in the butt.
Well, that sounds like a real feud to me. So what?
No, I probably will never speak. I probably won't see him anymore, because he said a week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't want nobody mentioning his name on my show. I don't want nothing to do with him, because in the studio I was doing Jack Martley's show. I wrote on the wall, Howard, you're a liar. And I signed my name to it. I figured that would get him all mixed up and call me down and say, tell me why I'm a liar, and I would tell him. But he knows I will tell him the truth.
Well, that does sound like a very legitimate feud. You referenced the roast there, and I did see there was an email that came, I believe it was from your manager that was forwarded on to me about the Tarantino thing and about his reaction to that, the fact that he thought you did a good job at that. So you clearly are one of the people who, when the public thinks about roasts, and really, you've got to be on a short list of the comedians who first come to mind on this subject here, the Friars Club roasts and everything else like that. That ties in very well to the type of comedy that you do on a regular basis.
No. What happens, I close the roast, which is the toughest place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And people say to me, well, we can't follow you. That's why you got to close the roast. And the only thing, and I'm not putting accolades on myself, I have a talent. I don't need a script in front of me. When I knew we were going to go to Quentin Tarantino, I knew what I couldn't say because everybody before me was going to say what I would like to say. So what did I do? I went after Uma Thurman, and they screamed. They screamed. And I says, I got no time for you, Quentin, even though you made stupid movies. This is my sweetheart. And I went after them. People screamed because I had the brains enough to know everything saying about Quentin Tarantino, and it was never getting laughs. I walked away, and I really roasted Uma Thurman, and it was wonderful.
Well, it's got to be tough to come up with the angle on this, particularly since you are closing at these ones here. But again, you clearly come across as somebody who is not fazed by the pressure of closing a roast.
No, because I believe in myself. I've never had writers writing for me. But what happens is the bad part, if the roast is dying and some of the guys are not hitting it, it's in my lap. But I don't say nothing. I go out and I say, okay. And I happen to be very fortunate of having enough in my brains to say, okay, this is what I got to say. I don't think Quentin Tarantino is funny because nobody got a laugh with this guy. I went out and Uma Thurman was sitting next to him, and I said out and I went after. It was wonderful, just wonderful.
Well, you know, these are the kind of things that again, as I say, it seems like it ties in very well to your act, because your act has always been, you know, a very cutting, very biting style of humor. So do you find yourself having to take that much different of a tack when you do a roast stylistically, or is it pretty much in the same vein as your general stage show?
No. I want people to know, with all due respect to the Dean Martin roasts and all the ones on the Comedy Channel, it's nothing like the roast of the Friars, because Dean Martin had 90 celebrities, and the one on the Comedy Channel stinks, out and out stinks. They have no flow, no feeling what a roast is about. So everybody now thinks that they're roasting. They don't know how to roast. It's a gift. And the young comics today, all due respect, don't have that flow and don't have the knowledge what a roast is about. I mean, the Dean Martin, when you got Sinatra's and all of them talking, you can't miss. But this here is wonderful with maybe 52,000 people, and they want to hear what you got to say about who you're roasting. And you better be prepared. Don't get up on that microphone because you'll fall in your butt. And I've seen a lot of guys, unfortunately, big names, couldn't say that. That doesn't mean they're not talented. They got nervous. They don't know what to say. And they read off a piece of paper, and there's no flow there. I walk up like okay, let's get this thing going. I do 8, 9, 10, 15 minutes, and I've been fortunate. And I've done about 20 roasts already.
Pat, that's very interesting, because it makes me wonder, you know, you wrote this book as something of a culmination of your career, but in hearing you talk about roasts, I'm left to wonder, is that something that you've thought that maybe at some point you might like to capitalize on some way, maybe some type of instructional DVD or something like that? It seems like you have a lot to offer comics in this way. Have you thought about focusing on that in particular and trying to pass along the knowledge in that way?
No, you know, Septic, see, my focusing is over. I have no more mountains to climb. I've done everything I ever wanted to do. To get as far as I got is a miracle. I'm so grateful. But again, it cost me family. It cost me some friends. But that's okay. If I had it to do all over again, I would have done it faster. That's my big mistake, but that's okay. I'm very happy. I got no complaints. I'm by myself. I have no woman in my life. I got my grandkids in Vegas. I got my daughter, my son-in-law. I'm a happy camper. I got in-laws in Ohio. I'm a happy camper.
Well, Pat, definitely you are all about and you epitomize brutal honesty. That's one of the things we appreciate the most on this program. It's why I appreciated the book and getting a chance to talk to you tonight. We always like to give our guests a chance to plug if there's anything else. So I know the book is the main thing you're talking about at the moment here, but if there's any kind of significant shows you've got coming up or anything else like that, please take the opportunity, sir. Put it out there.
No. My opportunity now is to push this thing. If I can get the best list of the times, I'll die happy. If not, I gave it my all. So I'm okay. I have nothing to complain. I know it's an old cliche, but I'm the luckiest guy I ever met.
Well, it is an excellent book, Pat. I'm holding it up to our high-definition camera here. Pat Cooper, How Dare You Say, How Dare Me. It's an excellent book, and it was a pleasure to get to talk to you tonight, sir. Love to have you back on any time to catch up with you.
Steve, you're a good friend, and I love you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you so much, Pat. The one and only Pat Cooper, everybody. There is only one Pat Cooper, indeed.